everyone, welcome back to Mad About Cards and Crafts and another Brutus Monroe Design Team project. Today we are playing with Aqua Pigments. I have red and I have green, and we are going to create 3 different color tones using these 2 colors. This is the beautiful Gifts stamp set. It's a 6x6 stamp set. It is a continuous stamp, so if I stamp right here and I wanted to, I could realign the bottom of that stamp with where I finished at the top, and I would get continuous coverage of the gifts. I treated my paper with my anti-static powder. I'm using my Brutus Monroe embossing ink, and I'm going to use my Alabaster embossing powder. I'm going to do some simple, very simple watercoloring. Basically, I was playing here. I just wanted to see the different colors that I could get. Obviously, I had an idea of what colors I was looking for, and so I thought that I would start by mixing the whites and showing you that when you mix the white and the red, you're going to get a beautiful pink tone. And when you mix the white the white Chroma mist with the green Aqua Pigment, you are going to get a beautiful minty color. It will go down a lot darker. It does end up drying back. I have painted on with that wide paintbrush just some clean water, and I'm laying this color down. Again, this was just a play session. I wanted to see the vibrancy of these. I've never played with the Aqua Pigments before. I wanted them, and then they had this huge sale. I mean, like 75% off, and everything sold out. And so I had to wait a little bit to get some of these colors because I do love watercoloring, and I wanted to give these a try, and they're absolutely beautiful. I'm going to get a little bit lighter of a green at the bottom because I was being very frugal. I spilled, let me just say it, I spilled that green ink, so I lost some of the pigment in that bottle. And I thought, I'm not going to put more pigment down. I just need to get a wash of this, and it was light enough that I was able to do that. So here is panel number 2. For panel number 2, I put the Aqua Pigment on my glass mat, and then I spritzed it with water, so I've diluted it a little bit. Look how vibrant it is. It's absolutely beautiful. But again, this is going to dry back. So when you lay down watercolors of any kind, always understand that you need to come back to it. If you want something that's going to be a little bit more intense, let it dry and then come back to it and add more color on top of it. And that's how you're going to get the vibrancy and the intensity that you might be looking for. But for this purpose, I basically just wanted to put some water into the Aqua Pigments, lay it down on paper, and see what I get. So I'm almost finished here. And here is the third one. And here see where I spilled it? That is where I spilled it, and I'm just using that ink. This is 100% pure Aqua Pigment. I've not diluted the pigment. I have not put any water on my paper. I am just going to town, and look at the vibrancy of these colors. Absolutely gorgeous, perfect Christmas colors, don't you think? And I was really happy with the intensity of this, and it maintained a lot of that intensity. So here's panel 1. Here's panel 2. You see that it dried back a little bit, and then there's panel 3, and you see that it really did maintain the vibrancy of what it looked like when I put it down. So let's start building some quick cards. I am going to cut this panel down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and then I'm going to cut it into strips. I believe they're like 3/4 inches, the strips are, and we are going to mount them onto some glitter cardstock. So I'm also going to cut them down just a little bit. I did cut them down just a little bit lengthwise as well. these this glitter paper is some inexpensive glitter paper that I've had forever. It's kind of like an ombre sheet of glitter paper, so you can see that there's different color tones in it. I cut the strips to be just a 1/4 inch larger than my 3/4 inch, so I believe these are more along the lines of 1 inch strips maybe. In fact, yes, I think they're 1 inch strips. So I have an 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. So these finished pieces are each going to be about 1 by 5 1/4. And I'm going to line these up here, and then I'm going to glue them straight down to my panel. I'm going to use a vellum sentiment. I use vellum on all 3 of my sentiments, and I did use the sentiment I think it's called Seasonal Sentiments. All of the products that I've used will be linked in the description box below. I treated this vellum with my anti-static tool. I'm going to use this Sterling Sparkle embossing powder. Oh my goodness, this is such yummy emboss. Look at all that sparkle. Such yummy embossing powder. I'm going to heat it from behind to start with, and then I'll heat it up front. I'm going to use my Tim Holtz decal trimmer, and I'm going to cut this down. I'm just eyeing this. I am not doing any real measurements. I don't have a plan as far as, basically what I do is, you see that line, there's like a plastic piece, and I line the bottom of my sentiment there. I wasn't looking for any particular size when I was outlining it. I just wanted to make sure that the edges were the same distance apart. So I have strategically placed some glue behind each of the letters. This is called the Evergreen Builder, so I used that same glitter cardstock. This time I used one of the green pieces, and then I used this beautiful champagne. For card number 2, I did cut my panel down. It's approximately 5 by 5. Again, I ran my embossing pad, the clear embossing ink, over the edges of this panel, and I used that beautiful sparkle embossing powder. And then I'm going to trim it down just a tad. So I'm just going to take about an 1/8 of an inch off. So maybe this was 5 1/4 by 5 1/4, and then I cut it down to 5 by 5. So this is going to be a square card. I'm going to bring in some, what is that called? I'm going to bring in some ribbon, some seam binding. That's what it's called. I'm going to bring in some seam binding, and I'm going to tie a bow along the left side of this card panel. I have stamped my sentiment that says Merry and Bright, and I'm using a circle distressed die from my stash. I have a mint, a pink, and a champagne tree from the Evergreen Builder. It does come with 3 tree sizes. Those are the sizes right there. As you can see, I tied my bow into, or I tied my ribbon into a knot instead of a bow. And I'm just going to glue everything straight to this panel. So no dimension here. I cut a 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 inch card base. I believe it's top folding. I'm strategically placing my glue behind the letters. And there is my top folding card base. I'm going to glue this to the card base, and that's going to be card number 2. For card number 3, we are going to create a shaker card. I couldn't find my acetate anywhere. I've since found it. It was right where it should have been. It was just clinging to something else. So I ended up needing to use, I ended up improvising and using these little plastic pieces that I had. I'm going to show you a quick picture of them, but I'm going to use those for my shaker card. So my shaker is not quite as clear, that there it is, cling vinyl, not quite as transparent as it normally would be if I would have used acetate, but it worked good enough. So this is good for having something in a pinch, and I don't even know where I got that. As you see, I used that Evergreen builder. I used I believe it's the largest tree to create my shaker well. I have added some glue around the edges, and I am getting this vinyl off of this backing. And once I get this off, I'm going to place it along the back side of this card, and then I'm going to add some double-sided foam tape. Now, I did decide to do 2 layers. Typically, I don't do 2 layers of double-sided foam tape. There you can see me struggling for a minute. What's new? I typically don't do 2 layers, but I really wanted this to shake really well, and since I wasn't using acetate, I wasn't sure if it was going to cling or what it was going to do. So I went ahead and used my anti-static tool. I filled my shaker bits with some sequins, a sequin mix that I had in my stash. And now I'm adding just a little bit of festive berries on the back side of that card panel. And here is my shaker card. I'm going to mount it onto a card base. I believe this is 8.5 by 3.5 inches. I have this Holly Jolly sentiment, and then I take some Tim Holtz dies that I had, some holly dies in my collection, and I'm going to use that Aqua Pigment to paint those. I'll use my stylus to shape them, and then I'll bring in off screen my Nuvo drops, and I'm going to create a couple of, or about 3, I believe, holly drops and holly berries, and those are going to be my cards for today. So I want to thank you for sticking with me. I hope you give these Aqua Pigments a try. I think that, you know, as I showed right here, that just using those 2 colors, I was able to get 3 different looks with it. So you don't have to buy the whole collection. You can just buy a couple colors and play with it and see what you come up with. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would absolutely love for you to subscribe and ring the bell so that you're notified whenever I do upload a video. It is Stamptember, and I want to let you know that we will be having a release this month from Brutus Monroe, so keep your eye out. Here's a close-up of my cards. Until next time, have a fabulous day. Thanks so much for watching.